This is Sarah from This Curly Girl Sews. Welcome to my sewing room. Today we're going to be sewing together the It's Got Pockets skirt. Before we start, obviously if you like the video, please subscribe below and like. Also I have a Facebook group called Sew My Wardrobe, that's sew as in S-E-W, Sew My Wardrobe, where you can show off all of your patterns that you've made. We'll start with the It's Got Pockets skirt. The It's Got Pockets skirt is an easy to sew pattern, so it's great for beginners or a really quick little sew if you're a little bit more advanced. It's got minimal pieces and mainly sewing straight lines. There's one little curve and that's it. There's no fastenings, so the only fitting you have to do is with elastic. So great, easy little sew. I have one here, so you can see it's a comfy fit skirt. This one's made out of cotton. It's great for woven fabrics. I wouldn't suggest anything too heavy. Quilting cotton is ideal, maybe something a little bit lighter. Linen is again brilliant. I made one out of denim and it was a little bit heavy, although it did work great, and I have a super comfy denim skirt. It has lovely big pockets on the front at the hip, so here, lovely slant pockets. They're easy to sew, but they look super professional. It's knee length, the pattern, but obviously you can always cut it a little bit shorter if you want something a little bit more sexy and a little bit shorter. But it's a super skirt to wear in the summer. It's lightweight, it's cool, it's very casual, and it's just a super little skirt to make. So let's get started on the It's Got Pockets skirt. I've already cut out all of my pieces, which I have in front of me. This is what you will have once you've cut out your pattern. So we have the front piece, which you cut on a fold. So your front piece will look like that with the pockets, corners sliced off there. You also cut out a back piece, again on a fold on that's marked centre back. So you have another piece that is like that. Pocket C is basically the side of the skirt where you cut out the front. So pocket C, you need two of these, but you basically cut them out on folded fabric. So you have one of each. So they're the mirror image of one another. So fold the fabric in half and cut it out, and you have pocket C. Exactly the same with pocket D. So you have, again, two pieces that are a mirror image of one another. So that's D. And the last piece is the waistband, which again, cut on a fold where it's marked on the pattern, and you'll end up with a waistband which is actually double the width of a waistband, so you have to fold that in half. And that's all you need. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces in total, although the pockets you have 2 of each, so that's 7 actual pieces of fabric that you have to sew. You will also need some 4 centimetre wide elastic to go around your waist, so that has to be long enough to go around your waist, but we'll fit that when we push the elastic in. You'll also need, obviously, your sewing kit, so pins, scissors, tape measure, and probably a pencil or fabric pen to mark pieces. So let's get started. Before we start, I just wanted to show you more clearly the pocket pieces, because they are a mirror image of one another. So when you fold the fabric in half, you cut like that, and then when you open them out, the right side, you have basically a mirror image of one another. The same with the other pocket pieces I have here. So pocket piece C, again, cut out like that on the folded fabric, and then when you unfold it, your two pieces will both have the curve on opposite. So again, they're a mirror image of one another. The front piece, it's actually the back piece, sorry, the back piece again is on a fold, so there's no join in the middle, it's literally the whole back section in one piece. And again with the front piece with the two pocket cutouts at the top. First thing you're going to do is actually take your front section and you're going to sew the pockets, the inside pockets on first. So take your front piece right side up, then get your pocket pieces so the right side is facing down, so turn them both over so the right side is facing down, and then literally match them to the cutouts on the front like so. So both of those slant should line up. Then pin along the pocket edge on both pockets. What you're going to do then is sew along both of these edges, and then you're going to turn the pockets over like that and press that seam flat, and then roll that seam underneath and press it again. So let's go to the sewing machine and sew the pockets on. So using a 1 centimetre seam allowance, which for me is lining up on the edge of my foot, basically sew in a straight line, just using a 2.8 or 2.6 stitch length in a straight stitch all the way along the edge of the pocket. And repeat that on the other side as well. I'm now going to take this to the ironing board and I'm going to iron over the seam flat and then roll over the edge and iron again, press along there as well. So I've now ironed both of those seams completely flat along the edge of the pocket there. So what I'm going to do now is actually top stitch 1 centimetre from the folded edge all the way along the edge of the pocket, and then once I've done one line of stitching at 1 centimetre from the edge, I'm going to edge stitch again, so it's a double line of stitching. So I'll have one line of stitching 1 centimetre from the edge, and then a second line of stitching maybe 1 or 2 millimetres from the edge, 1/8 of an inch, so that they're both parallel to one another. So we'll start with the 1 centimetre row. I need to increase my stitch length, which I'm going to increase my stitch length to 4, so it's a top stitch, so it looks a bit more attractive and not quite so small, and stitch. Go back. Back stitch at the end just to lock it off, and then go back to the beginning and do another edge stitch row. Once you've done it on this side, then repeat again on the other side. So there we have 2 parallel rows of top stitching. So now you have your pockets sewn onto your front piece. If I turn it over, you can see the right side of my pocket was on the wrong side of my fabric. So with your pocket pieces right side up and your main fabric wrong side up, take the other 2 pocket sections which are pattern piece D, which is the one with the slightly curved edge, and you want to match that curved edge onto the edge of the skirt. So like that. So the curved edge then goes all the way down the edge each side, and that's the curve of your hip. So put it onto pocket piece C so that the straight edges match up along there, and then the curve will be slightly towards the waist over your hips. What you need to do then is pin these in place just on the pocket bag, not through the front section as well. So literally you're pinning section C and D together, all the way down the straight edge there, and all the way along the bottom of the pocket. So effectively you're closing the pocket. Again, only through layers C and D of the pocket, and then up the side. You won't be able to go all the way because of your top stitching, so maybe 10 centimeters, 8 centimeters. Do exactly the same then on both sides. So this one again, line up the pieces, so just go round. You're going to take this back to the sewing machine and stitch around 3 edges like that to the sides. Don't stitch the top at this stage, you can do that at a later stage. So when you're stitching the pocket bags together, what you need to do is make sure that the front of the skirt is out of the way. So basically open out the pocket so that it's just the pocket bag you have and not the front of the skirt, and then basically sew round using your 1 centimeter seam allowance the complete 3 edges of the pocket. Remember to reduce your stitch length back down to 2.6 or 2.8 from your top stitching, and then sew around your pocket. So stop when you get to the corner, foot up, turn the fabric around, and then continue along. Stop when you get 1 centimeter from the end, foot up, turn the fabric, and sew with your 1 centimeter seam allowance. So that's one pocket done. Repeat exactly the same on the other side. Right, so the 1 centimeter seam allowance, stitch all the way down both sides. Making sure to keep the pocket flat underneath so it's not puckered or caught or buckled on both sides. Front and back pieces are now sewn together and you pretty much have your skirt. So you need to turn the skirt right sides out because it's inside out at the moment, so your pockets are then on the inside. So there's your skirt, And the next thing, the only thing that's left to do is to sew the waistband on. So that should be the only piece you have left. So set that aside, take the waistband, and with the wrong sides together, so the wrong sides together, you need to fold it in half, and press all the way along so it's folded in half. What you also need to do is the not interfaced side of the waistband, which is basically going to be the inside of the waistband. So for me, it's with that edge there. You need to fold over 1 centimetre and press that all the way along. So wrong sides are together. So from the outside of the waistband, when you turn it over, basically some of it will be folded underneath like that. So your front and back pieces are now sewn together and you pretty much have your skirt. So you need to turn the skirt right sides out, because it's inside out at the moment, so your pockets are then on the inside. So there's your skirt. And the next thing, the only thing that's left to do is to sew the waistband on. So that should be the only piece you have left. So set that aside, take the waistband, and with the wrong sides together, so the wrong sides together, you need to fold it in half, and press all the way along so it's folded in half. What you also need to do is the not interfaced side of the waistband, which is basically going to be the inside of the waistband. So for me, it's with that edge there. You need to fold over 1 centimetre and press that all the way along. So wrong sides are together. So from the outside of the waistband, when you turn it over, basically some of it will be folded underneath like that. So I've now pressed my seam allowance under and I've pressed my waistband in half. What you need to do is open out where you've pressed it and then fold your waistband in half so that the short edges come together. What you need to do then is pin along that short edge and stitch along that short edge with the 1 centimetre seam allowance. So I've now sewn that seam all the way across. That's across both of the folds in the fabric on that as well. You then need to just press the seam open. Join is going to be the centre back seam. So where you folded over the 1 centimetre is actually the inside of the waistband. So the other side is the outside of the waistband. So you need to take your skirt and your centre back, so that's the one without the pocket shaping, and with your centre back marked, which I had a little tiny nick in my fabric to mark the centre back and the seam on the waistband. What you need to do is pin the centre back at the seam. So 1 centimetre, put a pin there, then thread your skirt through the waistband and flip over so that the front, make sure the waistband isn't twisted. And then you take your centre front, which again is marked with a little notch, and the other side of centre of the waistband, and put a pin in there as well. So what you need to do now is ease the waistband around that edge, making sure that the pocket lies flat. You might want to just put a couple of pins just to hold the pocket in place, so that it's to make sure the pocket is flat and up to the waistband. And then just ease the waistband around the waist of the skirt. Like that, all the way around. Just pin it so it eases it in all the way around. So I've now pinned all the way around the waistband, so all the way around the waist. And what you need to do now is sew all the way around. So basically sew all the way around the waistband. Right, so once you've stitched on the waistband, so you have the waistband like that, there's the front pocket, and the waistband basically sticks up from here. What you need to do then is turn over, so this is inside out now, this is the inside of my skirt. What you need to do is actually turn over the waistband so the wrong sides are together. And you need to pin that in place. Now you need to actually pin that from the right side of the skirt. So you're basically folding it over, turning it over, and then pinning it in place. Because what you're going to do, I'm going to show you how to sew in the ditch on the right side. So literally pin it in place all the way around. The folded edge should make it dead easy. Now, what you need to do is actually leave a gap. You need to sew around this now, but you need to leave a gap at the centre back. So what I would do is actually get a couple of pins and mark where you want to sew so that you make sure you leave a gap. So if you're anything like me, you'll forget when you're sewing. So just leave a gap there. So what you're going to do now is put the right side, so you could turn it in the right way. So turn your skirt in the right way. And then starting at one gap here, you're going to basically, as you sew, you're going to open out that seam very slightly and actually sew in that existing seam line. So you need to make sure the needle is right in the center, so as it's feeding through the machine, the needle is actually going into that seam line, and that will catch the back of the waist in there as well. Let's go to the sewing machine and I'll show you how to do it. So I've tried to get really close so that you can see what I'm doing. So this is the first marker of where you want to start, and you need to get the center of the foot right in that seam line. So you need to slightly pull that out to separate the seam slightly so that you can get into that, sew in that seam as closely as you can. Put your needle down in, and you can see it's right in that seam line, that ditch, and then you need to just slowly sew. Let me just do a forward and a back. I will sew very slowly because this needs to be very, very accurate. So literally keeping that ditch in the center of the foot so that the needle is going down into the ditch. And then sew all the way around very slowly and very carefully. So as you can see, where I've sewn in the ditch on that side, you can barely see my stitches. It's actually very good. But it's caught in the waistband on the other side. So that's now stitched. That's now stitched down. So it's all nice and neat with no raw edges at all on the inside there. So yeah, looks really good. So we now have the waistband sewn on to our skirt. So what we need to do is put some elastic through that waistband so that it fits us. So you need to take your piece of elastic and basically put it around your waist so that it's slightly stretched. I would say fit it to your waist and then maybe take off 8 centimeters, 6 centimeters, something like that. See how that feels. You can always tighten it. But if you cut it more or less to your waist, that should be good enough. So I now have my piece of elastic cut to length, which it goes all around my waist and then a little bit of stretch. So take your safety pin, open it out, thread onto the end of one end of the elastic, close it up, then the centre back seam, where you left the little gap in the stitching, you need to thread that into the back seam, keeping the elastic flat. Do not twist the elastic, and then push the safety pin through and pull the elastic. So push the safety pin through, pull the elastic. Do that all the way around the waist. So once you've threaded your elastic all the way through, make sure that the end that you're not threading through doesn't go into the waistband, because that needs to be sticking out. So carefully pull out both ends of the elastic. Make sure the elastic is not twisted at all the way around. Take the safety pin out. So remove the safety pin and then put the elastic flat over one another like that and reattach the safety pin. So what you want to do is just try this on to make sure the elastic is short enough. So just let that go inside. You'll be able to find the safety pin, don't worry. Then ease the fabric around the elastic so that it's nice and even. And then go and try on your skirt just to make sure that the elastic is the right length. So if your elastic is the right length after you've tried it on, pull the safety pin with the elastic back out, and what you're going to do is actually stitch across here. So remove the safety pin and then carefully put the elastic on top of one another like that and zigzag, and then do a couple of rows straight as well, because this needs to not come undone. So you need to do a couple of runs across this just to make sure it's secure. So with your two ends of your elastic, you need to lay one over the other, slide it under the foot, lower your foot, push the needle in. What I would do is do one row straight just to secure it and back. Then next to that, do a row of zigzag. And then another row of straight next to that. That should be pretty much indestructible now. So you can let that back into the waistband like that. And then you just need to close that little gap there. Making sure everything is flat again. Make sure there's no other bits of the skirt in the way. Slide that under there, right on the very edge of that inside of the waistband. And just carefully close that gap where the elastic is. Right, now you can just ease that fabric around the waistband and actually leave that like that. However, what I'm going to do is actually sew some rows of stitching just to make it look a little bit more professional and a little less homemade. So starting at the back, once you've eased all your fabric so that it's lovely even gathers all the way around the skirt, starting at the back, go 1.5 centimeters away from the top edge. So 1.5 centimeters. And then what you need to do is just do a back and a forward just to secure the stitching. And then gently make sure the elastic is flat in the waistband. Gently pull the elastic from both sides, so you don't want to just pull it that way because it won't feed through the machine properly. So just hold it the other side and gently pull, and then let the elastic just feed through the machine. I'm going to use length 3 stitch, it doesn't need to be that small, and keeping it parallel to the edge of 1.5 centimeters, easing the fabric and the elastic through all the way around, so all the way around 1.5 centimeters from the top of your waistband. When you've sewn around the first loop, move the fabric over and go from this waist seam, go 1.5 centimetres the other way, so it's nice and even. And then go back and forward. You're sewing on top of the elastic, which is why you have to stretch it, and basically go round again, parallel to the other row of stitching. So now you have 2 rows of parallel stitching, just securing that elastic. That makes sure the elastic doesn't twist or all the gathers end up in one place, and it just stays nice and even all the way around. It gives a really super professional finish. So now you have your skirt waistband done. As you can see, it's lovely, beautiful gathers on there. The only thing left to do is the hem. So you need to make sure that it's cut off the length you want it. Mine is approximately knee length. So what you need to do is then turn over the hem and just iron that to 1 centimetre, and then turn over again and for another couple of centimetres and press that, and then you're just going to run a running stitch, straight stitch all the way around. So press over 1 centimetre, press over 2 centimetres, pin, press it, iron it, pin it, and then stitch around with a straight stitch. Alternatively to a straight stitch, you can actually do a blind hem, which sounds complicated, but it's dead easy. What you need to do is fold over 1 centimetre and press, fold over 2 centimetres and press. Once you've done that, come over to the sewing machine. You need to find a stitch that looks like my number 23. So you have straight, 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 and then a little zigzag, straight, 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 little zigzag. So find a stitch that is the same as that, and that is your blind hem stitch. So a blind hem stitch is all in the folding. So you have your hem folded to the inside like that with the other fold there. What you need to do is roll that underneath, but leave a tiny bit of it showing. So can you see that? So basically that's the hem. So literally fold that so that there's a tiny bit of the original hem showing, and then this is the body of your fabric. So what you need to do is put that under the needle so that the folded edge of the body of the fabric is pretty much in the middle of the foot, and then this protrudes out to the right of that underneath the foot. Because what you're going to do is have the straight stitch on the actual hem, and then it's going to do a little tiny zigzag just over, just to catch this fabric on this side. So I'm just showing you from another angle now. So this basically is your hem that you've folded under. This is the inside of your skirt here. So what you need to do is line up the middle of the foot with the inside of your skirt, and then you'll have the hem that you've pressed sticking out to the left, to the right, sorry. So what will happen is the stitch will go stitch, stitch, stitch on here, and then do a little zigzag over to the other fabric and just catch this fabric, and then stitch, 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 zigzag, stitch, 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 zigzag. So what you're doing is just catching every few stitches just on the body of the skirt, and all the rest is basically sewn on the back of the hem. So let me just show you that. You see what's happening there? Stitch, 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 zigzag, just to catch that. I'm going a bit crooked because I'm doing it one-handed, but stitch, 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 zigzag, stitch, 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 zigzag. So if we go the other side, you can see it's just caught the fabric. So what will happen is when you turn that the right way round, you'll end up with little tiny, pretty much invisible stitches there, look. And what you'll do is basically just press those open, and you won't really be able to see them that easily. And that's a blind hem. So congratulations, we've reached the end of the tutorial. You've now completed your It's Got Pockets skirt. Here's mine that I made. Aren't they just fab? So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful to you as well to go through with your pattern. If you liked my video, please click like below, and also please subscribe to my channel, which will enable me to do more videos in the future. I'd like you to join my Facebook group as well, Sew My Wardrobe, where you can show off your new skirt, as well as other patterns, and I also offer discounts on my sewing patterns there as well, so, and you get previews as well. Equally, my Instagram, if you follow me on Instagram, this Curly Girl Sews, you'll be able to see sneak previews where I'm testing out patterns and my creative process to actually develop patterns as well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and happy sewing everyone!